All right, Dungeon Masters. You ready to craft some villains that your players are going to love to hate? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the psychology of evil.
Yes.
And we're going to be looking at it all through the lens of Dungeons & Dragons.
That's right. We're not just talking about like stat blocks and damage rolls here.
Yeah.
We're talking about like really crafting antagonists that have depth and intrigue and motivations that go beyond just like destroy the world.
Exactly. And to help us kind of break down this wicked journey, we're going to be turning to the insights of Paul Bello.
Absolutely.
Who's a lit RPG author.
Yes.
So think like online fantasy novels. And he's also a game developer who knows a thing or two about crafting compelling villains.
Yeah, absolutely. He wrote this piece called 7 Dungeons & Dragons Villains You Will Love to Hate.
Okay.
And in it, he kind of breaks down what makes these iconic baddies tick.
Right.
And how you can use those same principles to like breathe life into your own creations.
Okay. So less about fireballs and hit points.
Yes.
And more about crafting a villain that your players will be dying to defeat, maybe even sympathize with a little bit, but ultimately will shape your campaign world in unforgettable ways.
Exactly. And Bello's got some prime examples in here.
Okay.
Like, let's take Demogorgon, for example.
Oh, man, Demogorgon.
The Prince of Demons.
That name itself sounds like something you'd find in a heavy metal song.
Right. He's got the look down, that's for sure.
Yeah.
2 baboon heads, reptilian body tentacles.
Oh, yeah.
The works. But what makes Demogorgon truly interesting is that each of his heads has its own distinct personality.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
2 heads, 2 different personalities?
Yeah.
How does that even work in game?
Well, imagine this.
Okay.
One head, a mule, is all about strategy and cunning, whispering plans, sowing discord.
Okay.
The other head, Hethrodaya, is pure primal rage and destruction. So one minute, Demogorgon is laying a trap. The next, he's charging into battle in a berserker fury. Talk about keeping your players on their toes.
Oh, that's brutal. So it's like trying to predict a hurricane. You never know which way it's going to go.
Exactly. And Bello argues that this duality, this embodiment of pure chaos, is what makes Demogorgon such a terrifying and effective villain.
Okay.
He's unpredictable, and that makes him dangerous.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about how strong your villain is.
Right.
It's about how their personality and their actions can introduce that chaos and uncertainty into the game. I like it. Let's move on to another one of Bello's examples.
Okay.
Vecna.
Vecna.
The whispered one.
Yes.
This guy gives me the creeps just hearing that name.
Rightfully so. Vecna's backstory is practically a D&D cautionary tale about the seductive and ultimately corrupting nature of power.
Okay.
Especially magical power.
Right.
He was once a powerful wizard obsessed with unraveling the universe's secrets, even dabbling in forbidden magic.
Okay, I see where this is going. Too much knowledge went a little mad, classic villain origin story.
More than a little mad.
Okay.
He became a lich, which is an undead spellcaster, to further his pursuits. And then he ascended to godhood.
Oh, wow.
But not before his hand and eye, corrupted by his dark magic, were severed from his body.
Oh, no.
And guess what? They became artifacts of immense power, sought after by adventurers and villains alike.
Oh, man, that's messed up.
Right.
So his own ambition literally came back to bite him.
Right.
Or I guess sever his hand and eye in this case.
Yeah.
That's some good storytelling right there.
It is.
And it highlights what Bello was talking about with motivation, right?
Exactly. Vecna's relentless pursuit of forbidden knowledge, no matter the cost, is a powerful motivator. And it's something that you as a dungeon master can use to create your own compelling villains.
So instead of just saying, my villain wants to rule the world, you dig a little deeper. Like, what are they willing to sacrifice to achieve their goals? What lines are they willing to cross?
Exactly.
That's how you make them truly terrifying and relatable.
Absolutely, because let's face it, haven't we all been tempted by the promise of power or knowledge?
Okay, that's a bit too real.
Right.
Moving on.
Okay.
Let's talk about Ashardalon.
Okay.
The dragon with a demon heart. Now, I'm no expert, but that can't be good. I mean, a demon heart, that's not your average dragon upgrade.
No, it's way more intense than getting like a magical flaming sword or something like that. See, in the world of D&D, demons aren't just like generically evil creatures.
Right.
They're forces of chaos and destruction, literally from like a whole other plane of existence called the abyss.
Okay, so we're talking cosmic level bad here. Not just your local village pillaging kind of bad.
Exactly, and they're hearts.
Yeah.
They're like concentrated sources of that chaotic energy.
Oh, wow.
So for Ashardalon, a dragon who's already a powerhouse,
Right.
to not just survive having a demon heart put in him,
Right.
but to have it amplify his power,
Yeah.
that tells you everything you need to know about his sheer willpower and how far he'll go to just dominate.
So it's like taking an already formidable villain and cranking him up to 11.
Precisely. And that's where that Frisian concept that Bello mentioned comes into play.
Okay.
You can use it to create your own unique villains
Right.
by combining elements from different creatures or even concepts.
Okay.
Imagine a vampire with the powers of a werewolf.
Oh.
Or a golem animated by the spirit of a vengeful ghost.
Ooh, those are good. See, this is what I'm talking about. These little details, these unexpected combinations, they can really make your villain stand out.
Absolutely.
But what about villains who mess with you mentally, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Bello mentioned someone named Manchun,
Manchun.
who apparently has a little bit of a cloning problem.
Bit of a cloning problem. Yeah, he's a classic example of a villain who uses deception and paranoia to his advantage.
Okay.
Imagine this. You think you finally cornered the evil mastermind, the head of like a powerful thieves guild, only to find out that he's got like a dozen identical copies of himself.
What?
Each one just as cunning and ruthless as the original.
Oh, man, that's messed up.
Yeah.
It's like that moment in a movie where you think the hero is won, but then bam, a dozen more villains show up, and you realize it's just the beginning of the nightmare.
Exactly. And as a dungeon master, that's where you can have some real fun.
Okay.
Imagine the chaos and paranoia that you could create.
Right.
Are all the clones working together?
Right.
Or do some of them have their own agendas?
Wow.
Do the players waste precious time and resources fighting a copy while the real Manchun escapes?
I'm getting stressed just thinking about it.
Right.
But that's good, right? Because as much as I love a good dragon or a demon lord, a villain who can mess with my players' minds is just as, if not more, terrifying.
Absolutely. And it plays into one of Bello's key points about crafting compelling villains.
Okay.
Make it personal.
Oh, right. He talked about that. How do you do that with a guy like Manchun, though? I mean, clones, it makes it hard to have a personal connection when you don't even know who's who.
True. But think about it this way.
All right.
What if one of those clones isn't an exact copy?
Okay.
What if during the cloning process something went wrong and one of them developed a conscience? Maybe this clone wants to help the players stop the original Manchun.
Wow.
Even if it means sacrificing himself.
Whoa, that's deep. Now you've got me thinking about the clones' motivations. Like, are they just mindless puppets, or do they have their own hopes and their own fears?
Right.
Man, that opens up a whole new can of worms, but in a good way.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of what Bello is getting at.
Okay.
By giving your villains depth and complexity.
Right.
By exploring their motivations.
Right.
And giving them a personal stake in the conflict.
Yeah.
You create antagonists that are far more engaging and memorable.
So it's not just about what the villain does, but why they do it.
Exactly.
And that why can be incredibly powerful.
Yes.
Especially if it ties into the player's own backstories or goals.
Precisely. And that leads us to another one of Bello's intriguing villains, Strahd von Thorovich.
Oh, yeah, the vampire lord.
Yes.
Classic D&D baddie.
He's a classic for a reason. See, Strahd isn't just some bloodthirsty monster who lurks in the shadows.
Okay, so there's more to him.
He's a tragic figure, cursed to an eternity of undeath because of a love so strong it drove him to make a deal with dark powers.
Wait, seriously, there's a love story behind all those fangs and brooding. Tell me more. So this Strahd guy, he's not just some mindless monster. He's driven by like a broken heart. That's kind of tragic.
Exactly, and that's what makes him so compelling. He's not evil for evil's sake.
Right.
He's motivated by this desperate longing for a love he lost centuries ago, trapped in this cycle of trying to recapture it.
Right.
Even if it means like terrorizing an entire domain.
Wow, that adds a whole other layer to the vampire thing, right? It's not just about bloodlust anymore.
Right.
It's about this deep, almost Shakespearean level of sorrow.
Exactly. And it plays into what Bello calls creating moral dilemmas for your players.
Okay.
Do they try to destroy Strahd, this creature consumed by grief?
Right.
Or do they try to find a way to break the curse, even if it means risking the safety of the realm?
Oh man, those are some tough choices. And I bet no matter what the players decide, there were going to be some serious consequences.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about defeating the villain anymore. It's about wrestling with the weight of those decisions.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
Because those gray areas, those moments where the line between good and evil gets blurry,
Yeah.
that's where you can create truly unforgettable gaming experiences.
Okay, I'm totally picking up what you're putting down here.
Yeah.
But we've only scratched the surface of Bello's list, right?
We have, yeah.
We've still got Acerak, the Mind Flayers, Tiamat, Asmodeus. I mean, these are some heavy hitters.
They are, but think of them as inspiration.
Okay.
As jumping off points for your own creations. Acerak, the architect of the infamous Tomb of Horrors, shows how you can use puzzles and death traps to challenge players in ways that they never expected.
Right.
He's a reminder that sometimes the deadliest villains are the ones who use their intellect to inflict pain.
And what about the Mind Flayers? They're like the stuff of nightmares, psionic, brain-eating creatures from another dimension.
They represent that blend of sci-fi horror that can really shake things up in a fantasy setting.
Right.
Imagine your players not just battling for their lives, but for their very sanity, against creatures who can invade their minds and twist their thoughts.
Okay, now that's just creepy.
Yeah.
Then you got Tiamat, the five-headed dragon goddess of evil dragons.
Right.
Talk about a boss fight.
Tiamat represent like pure, unadulterated ambition and the pursuit of power at all costs. She's a force of nature, a reminder that some villains are so powerful. Defeating them might require more than just brute force.
Right.
It might require cunning, alliances, and maybe even a little bit of luck.
And last but not least, we have Asmodeus, the ruler of the Nine Hells.
Yes.
This guy is basically the devil, right?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
But he's also a master manipulator.
Okay.
A schemer who plays the long game, twisting fate and tempting mortals into making deals that they'll regret.
So he's the ultimate puppet master, pulling the strings from the shadows.
Exactly. And that's something to remember even when crafting less cosmically powerful villains.
Right.
Their influence can be felt throughout the campaign world,
Okay.
even when they're not directly present.
Right.
Maybe it's a whispered rumor,
Okay.
a strategically placed agent, or the consequences of a past evil that ripple outward.
So to wrap this all up, what I'm hearing is that creating a truly memorable villain is about more than just stats and powers.
Yes.
It's about giving them depth and motivation and a connection to the players and the world around them.
Yes.
It's about making them unforgettable.
Precisely. It's about understanding what drives them, what makes them tick.
Right.
And using those insights to craft antagonists that will challenge your players on every level, physically, mentally, and even emotionally.
And who knows, you might even find yourselves feeling a little bit bad for the villain, even as your players are celebrating their defeat.
Right.
Because the best villains, the ones we remember long after the game is over, are often the ones who were the most human, even in their monstrous ways.
And that's something to think about.
It sure is. Well, that was a deep dive into the dark side if I've ever heard one. Until next time, may your villains be deliciously wicked and your campaigns legendary.